Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast, the show where we dive deep into actual strategies behind starting and building businesses that consistently make money. Whether you're a founder, a sales leader, or just a curious builder starting to dream, this podcast should be a toolbox so that you can make profitability a default setting, not a lucky outcome. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton. Today, my guest is Will Steck. Will, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So you own Winthrop Supply.
Correct. I co-own Winthrop Supply.
With your sister.
With my sister, actually my two sisters.
Ah.
Yeah. One of them's more of a silent partner, but the other one I work day-to-day in operations with.
All right. Well, why don't we do this? You and I have met. We've spoken a couple times now. Why don't you take a minute or two, introduce yourself and your company?
Okay. My name is Will Steck, born and raised in Indianapolis. My sister and I own and operate a fourth generation plumbing supply company, which was started in 1939 by my great grandfather. Passed on to his daughter, which was my father's aunt. And then we acquired it from my father about 6 years ago.
All right. So this is, I don't know how many, but I can tell you right off the top of my head, 2 other family owned businesses that I've interviewed. Both were, well, one was third generation. I think one was fifth generation. So there was Connor Insurance, started as an insurance agency, is an insurance agency. You started as a plumbing supply house. You are a plumbing supply house.
Correct.
Leap Managed IT started as a typewriter repair business and is now doing IT.
Sure.
So yeah, it's, so what are some of the pressures? I mean, family owned business, what are some of the pressures of having one?
There's always pressures. The initial pressure when we started was obviously don't let the family down. You have a lot of eyes on you. Obviously it's made it so far, so you don't want to be the one to let it go.
Yeah. After the first 90 years, don't screw it up.
Correct. So once you get over that hump, there's always going to be pressures in running and operating your own business. It's kind of how you handle them. And if you're not feeling the pressure, then in my mind, you're really not trying hard enough.
Yeah, you're not doing anything different. So you take it over 6 years ago. How long had you worked in the business before that?
Oddly enough, me and my sister both started full time on the same date, 2009. So we both started, and my father was the kind of guy that worked you from the ground up. We started in the warehouse, sweeping the doors, loading trucks, unloading trucks. And it was about 3 years that we both did that together and decided that we see a future in this, not only for our own sanity and to be happy, but to actually make some good money doing it. So we both graduated out of the warehouse roles in about 2012 or 13 and saw, okay, it's time to really get the business with the times. And if you know anything about plumbing, it always seems to be about a half century behind everything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a hands-on, like AI does not replace plumbers.
Correct. Yeah. And plumbers, I've come to find out that they need people to help them through their jobs. It is hard enough to order a 100-piece list online, let alone, with a person that can actually correct you as you're ordering. So
yeah.
That's kind of what we strive to do.
So you guys work in the business, you start 2009 from the ground up. You work through 2013 to 2020. And in 2020, you buy it. At that point, you've been there 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
You probably had a pretty good idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that you had to figure out when you became the person in the big seat?
The biggest thing to figure out, and it's always a learning experience, is how to manage your staff. Finding the key people and the key leaders that can help alleviate some of your day-to-day stress was another big thing for us. When we started, there's 2 people that wore all the hats, and we wanted to be those people that wore all the hats. But as the business grows, you come to find that you can't do everything yourself. So really finding and retaining key management, key employees was a big step for us.
So you you walk in, the business is already running, the people are already there. Um, how much of a you know when you start a brand new business, people say, "Hey, you got to have a strategic plan. You got to have 6 months of savings. You got to have a clear idea what your clients are going to buy." I mean, you kind of walk into a business that's up and running. You have an idea what people are going to buy. How much time did you and your sisters spend building a plan for what you wanted the business to be?
Um, quite some time, and I can't say that that's ever stopped because, plumbing supplies don't change, but businesses are ever evolving and the times are changing. How we do things, efficiencies is always changing. But our biggest hurdle was automating inventory and using software and ERP. You know,
Oh, your dad didn't have that?
he did, but it wasn't being utilized to its fullest capability. So we did a good 2 or 3 years of crunching numbers and data entry, and making some adjustments that weren't friendly to the bank statement. But at the end of the day, it's what needed to be done to keep moving forward. That was 2015 to 2018, where it was really the big ERP update change and getting everything automated to streamline future processes.
So you didn't you were actually doing all that before you actually owned it.
hmm Yeah. Well, we saw the future. We knew where the future was. And when my dad was looking to kind of really nail down on his succession plan, whether it was going to be sell the business or pass it to the next generation, I remember the day where he sat us both down and looked us in the eye and said, "I need to know now, are you in it or do I need to look for a buyer?" And we both went home and talked it over and, said,
You were in
Let's
it.
do this thing." So we knew probably about 2013, 2014 that that was going to be the path we were going to take.
Okay, so now even before you own it, you're starting to make the adjustments. When what was the at what point did you sit down and come up with like a written vision or mission for your company?
Um, I would say after me and our current, what I would call him, would have been our controller or CFO, took a trip to Cincinnati to really sit down with the accounting firm that held, all the right tools for our ERP and our software that we were investing in. And after we learned a lot more about what was at our fingertips and what we could do to make the business better, we really came to the drawing board and said, this is kind of the path we need to take. This is our focus, and these are our niche customers that we need to focus on.
All right. And so once you did that, what are some other things that you changed? Because I think one of the things that, when we first talked, you were like, "Hey, we've opened a second location. We're getting ready to open a third location." It seems like you have a vision that you're moving towards, and that doesn't really just kind of happen by accident.
No, it didn't. A lot of it stemmed from, and it's kind of the way of the world now, of everything needs to happen now and fast. It's the same with a plumber. They have so many jobs on their list, they don't have time to waste. So, how can you take an ordering process and streamline it, make it more efficient, not only for yourselves, but for your customer? And when you're in my world, repeat business is everything. You want to see the same faces over and over again. Streamlining and efficiencies is really what you nail down on. So once you perfect one, you need to move on to the next one to continue to make the business flow better.
Yeah. So what are some other changes you made? I mean, you did the ERP, you've opened locations. What are some other things that you had to?
Well, we've had to obviously refresh our website because for all the eyes that don't come into your store, that is what they think of you when they get online. And more people are using online as a tool to search for a place to buy or a place to shop. And you don't have an attractive website, whether they use the functionality of it or not, they're going to move on to the next anyway. So rebuilding the website, incorporating text messaging services for order entry, reasons, looking into more of a B2B e-commerce platform that can operate on our website. All the things that can make a plumbing service manager or plumbing technician's life easier when it comes to getting the parts they need.
All right. This is going to be a little bit of an odd question, but what are some of the things that you've had to say no to since you've kind of taken over and set your course?
Had to say no to a lot, um, but you have to keep an open mind. The hardest the hardest no's I have are when you have really good up and coming employees that have great ideas, but finding a way to explain to them that it's not the place and time for their idea. So on a day to day shutting down, my staff, which is amazing, by the way. I can't really think of the weak link right now, which you always have one, but when
Yeah.
it's hard to think about it, that means you got a good team.
Yeah.
But yeah, really saying no to some of those good ideas that just aren't the right place and the time. That's pretty tough to do. Working with family, obviously, my sister and I are on the same page 95% of the time, but the other 5% of the time when you have to disagree, we're lucky we have a buffer in our other sister there to
The
help,
silent partner?
yeah, mitigate that conversation. But you know, owning a business, you really wish you had a endless bucket of money you could operate with, and if you did, you could make all the right decisions in the world. But
Oh, yeah. Everything's easy if there's no limitations.
reality is everything does cost money and you have to budget appropriately. And sometimes your dreams can be a little too expensive and you have to keep chugging along. And maybe next year you can revisit what you were thinking of.
Uh, so you look around and you see all these other people that run businesses because plumbers are businesses, right? You've got friends that own businesses. What what things do you think business owners miss on that you've been fortunate to like have in place?
I think a lot of them, and I see a lot from my side because we have a lot of customers that go into business for themselves, have their plumbing license, have the world ahead of them, and they want to give it a shot. I think the biggest thing is getting comfortable isn't a real thing. If you get comfortable, and a lot of people want to achieve this state of you know just a comfort zone where that's where I want to be as a business owner. I want it to run itself. It's just not a real thing. You've got to continue to grind, continue to build on what you built, and always continue to have an exit strategy, even if it's 20 years down the road. Right now, I have no intention of leaving my seat. Me and my sister love what we do. We love coming into the office every day. But one big takeaway I've learned recently is it's never too early to think about your exit strategy because times change and have to be ready to shift with.
Yeah, I forget what book it is, but they talk about the most important thing a business owner can do is build the business like they want to sell it tomorrow.
Mhm. Well, everybody's got a number. My number is way out of the ballpark for anybody that would approach me today or tomorrow, but you have to be ready. And you have to be ready. We're in a unique position because we're a generational business, but I can't guarantee that my kids are going to want to continue on dad's path. I hope they do, and if they do, I'm ready for it. But at the same time, I have to be ready for that same conversation my father had with me 10 years ago. Look them in the eye and say, "Do you want to do this?" They say no. We've got to keep moving along.
Yeah, you got to deal with a no.
Yeah.
So you got some friends that work for big corporations. They come to you and they say, "Hey, listen, you're self-employed. You own a business. I'm thinking about leaving the big corporation and start my own thing." How do you respond to that?
And it sounds cliche, but you better make sure you have a business plan and you better make sure you've thought it through. I'll go back to my days in college where I studied entrepreneurship at University of Indianapolis, and making a business plan was a big thing for one of the courses. And of course, I didn't give it the time and energy that it deserved. And I breezed through it, maybe got a C or a B minus on it. But looking back at it now, all of the things that you run into, even if it's something as minor as, a gas bill going, a tank of gas going on the company. It all matters, and it all matters in your budget and how you plan going forward. And if you don't have capital to move forward, then your business is going to fall apart pretty quick.
Yeah. And the plan is almost always inaccurate, but the process of planning is almost always invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So if 2026 could sit down next to 2020 and say, listen, this all works out. You do great when you take over. You and your sisters, you'll be fine. But tomorrow when you walk in, you can do a bunch of different stuff as your first day of the owner. What's the first thing a business owner should do? What's the thing you focus on first?
2020 would have said, stop trying to clone yourself, because it's not going to happen. At that point in our time where we were wearing a lot of hats, we were trying to make the next piece of the leadership team act exactly like us or be exactly like us, which they can think like you, they can move like you, but at the same time, people will be, their own individuals. So finding your employees' strengths and weaknesses and really moving on that. That is probably the best thing that I've figured out, is to identify strengths and weaknesses, and don't try to make somebody with these weaknesses do something that they're not good at. If you want to keep them around, find something that they're good at that they can build on. I would say that's probably the biggest takeaway I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a good piece of advice. Like, just don't try to clone yourself. Find people that can do a job.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with companies, and one of the things I chide my owners on is I say, you're giving your people an awful lot of money so that you can prevent them from doing what they're good at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would agree with that.
So, yeah. All right. Well, that's a quick 20 minutes.
Well, with you, Matt, it goes quick. Life's easy when you're having fun.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Will. Appreciate you being a guest.
I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for having me.
No problem. And if you're listening, 3 ways you can help us. Leave a review, hit subscribe, share an episode. We'll be back next week. Until then, keep working, stay focused, stay profitable.